This time on the Families Matter Most podcast.
The reason why dieting is such a problem is that we think that when we achieve our goal weight, that we're suddenly going to have this better life. And that's why diets who offer such a short-term solution, you're going to lose your weight in 3 months or 6 months. And it's like, why do we tend to go for those diets? It's because we think it's going to be better there than it is here. That we need to understand and realize that it's not going to be better there.
Every time Jen Dean speaks, I can see hope, knowledge, expertise, wisdom, and love.
When Jen Dean speaks about parenting, we make sure that we are there to listen because we know we will get valuable advice.
Families Matter Most with Jen Dean.
She doesn't just give skills for us to be better parents, but she teaches us how to reach our children's hearts. And at the end of the day, that's what truly matters.
Welcome to the Families Matter Most podcast. I am so pumped to have a very special guest, a wonderful person, an amazing coach, and a really, really great friend of mine. Welcome, Jaycee Tara.
Aww. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Jen.
I'm so glad you're here. Now, you are a coach, a weight loss coach specifically?
That is right. Yep. My specific niche is helping women lose their weight for good.
I like the words for good in there because what I've noticed in my coaching and for my own self and for the people that I've helped, the hardest part isn't losing the weight necessarily. The hardest part is keeping it off. Would you agree?
100%. Yeah. I think that with each diet that we go on, we really hope that it will be the lasting diet, the diet that we can align with and we can, keep our weight off for good. But the actual definition of a diet is something that you go on temporarily to lose weight.
Yeah.
And then you go off of it.
And then what happens when we go off of it?
Then all the weight comes back and
with
all
friends.
Of the old, yes. And the same beliefs that it's always going to be so hard. I'm never going to lose my weight.
And now, Jaycee, you know what I love is, we've been working together in different forms for years now. Mm-hmm. And so this isn't something you read in a textbook. This is something you have lived out. Will you share some of your own journey with us?
Yes, I would love to. So my journey to become a life and weight loss coach was really inspired by my own transformation of ending dieting altogether and really learning how to end emotional eating. Sadly, I began dieting when I was 13 years old. I was called fat for the first time in grade 8. And it was really the first time that I paid attention to how much I was eating, how much I weighed, how clothes fit on my body. I became super aware of how everybody else around me was eating. And I became aware of how attached to food and food obsessed that I was.
Oh.
So yeah, unfortunately, that story isn't super original.
No,
I think every young girl has this experience where, at some point somebody says something to them and then they really look at themselves and find themselves fantasizing about what it would be like to be thin. Mm-hmm. And that was the spiral that I found myself in. I believed that I would be more likable, that the guys would like me, that I would be more worthy if I could just eat normally like my best friends were.
Oh, if you could just be skinny.
If I could just be skinny.
Oh,
yeah.
13
so
old.
No, can you believe that? So yeah, I tried a lot of like diety things. I tried, cutting certain foods out, and I lived in a, home where my mom was always trying different diets. So I would be secretly doing some of the things that I saw her doing. And this really lasted into my 20s, but something happened in my 20s that really made a shift in my appearance. So I found this way to be thin and still eat whatever I wanted and however much food that I wanted. And so do you know why?
I could guess, but please, you know what? Because I know so many of our listeners have struggled with this. So if you're willing to be vulnerable, I think it could help a lot of people.
Yeah. So, I had this period of about 1.5 years where I was binging and purging. Yeah. And that was quite an awful period of my life where I was really hating myself. Like I was just this deep self-loathing. And unfortunately, I didn't have anybody who I could talk to. for such a long time. And there's a lot of shame that is associated with something like that.
Yeah.
But I ended up telling my boyfriend, who is now my husband, and he was the one that actually got me, to go see a therapist and to work on that a little bit. But I still had this belief and I still had this attachment to food to solve for my emotions. And so in my mid-20s, I started to play competitive squash. And this allowed me to lose my weight again, to be thin, and also, again, still eat whatever I wanted.
Because you were so active, you could burn off whatever you ate.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what squash is, it's like racquetball, but it's completely different. You play with a little black ball, you're on a court, you have a racket, you play against, your opponent until the rally ends. And one of the other things you probably don't know is that squash is one of the highest caloric burning exercises in sports out there if you're playing at a high level.
Right.
And I was playing at a high level. I was top 10 in Canada and I was playing on the professional tour. And this really allowed me to, fuel up and, get the calories in. So I was living this life of like, oh my gosh, I feel so great.
Yeah.
I'm looking good. I'm feeling fit.
Yeah. And I can eat whatever I want.
Yes. Yeah. I can eat whatever I want. But there was still that deep sense of brokenness. I still felt out of control around food. And I kind of had this fear lurking in the background, like, when this ends, what's going to happen?
Right.
Yeah. So while squash had me maintain my weight, I still felt that brokenness on the inside. And so fast forward a few years later.
What happened when it did end?
When it did end and I entered motherhood and started having children, I still tried to, I think after my first daughter was born, I still maintained like working out all the time. And I was kind of like trying to get my weight back down. And then I had my second kid. And then in between that second and third kid, the weight came on, and it was about a 35-ish pound weight gain that I felt like there was like the scale was just trending upwards because I didn't have this time. I didn't have the schedule that would allow me to go train, 2 or 3 times a day. So this is when the dieting started to happen again. I was like, okay, so my friend's losing weight on keto. This one's doing the 21-day fix. And I was trying all the things. But every time I attempted this diet or tried to adopt healthy eating habits, I inevitably gave into those self-sabotaging eating behaviors where I would have one bad day or one bad week. And I would just say, that's it. I can't do this. I got to eat it all. And so it was like this never ending cycle.
How many diets, if you were to guess, how many diets do you think you tried?
Oh man, I would say over 15, but I think they say that the average amount of diets that women do is around 20 diets.
Yeah.
How about you?
In my life, I think I've probably done, about 20.
Yeah.
About 20 different things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But you get more desperate as like I remember doing the cabbage soup diet.
Oh yeah.
You just eat massive amounts of soup for days. I remember the craziest one I was on was a week where I could eat ice cream and I could eat hot dogs, but then I couldn't eat for a long time. It was this weird schedule. Like I couldn't eat very much, but then I could have a hot dog, and then I couldn't eat very much, and then I could have ice cream. And it was so bizarre. And I don't know why I thought that would be healthy. But I think there's a part of, you've talked about feeling broken and that self-loathing. And I think there's a part of us that almost wants to punish ourselves. Like you ate at the buffet on the weekend. That's it. You get nothing but lettuce and water on Monday.
Yes.
Like it's like we have to make ourselves pay because we're so mad at ourselves.
It's that deep sense of brokenness and now punishment. It's
punishment.
Self-sabotaging.
This is what I deserve. This is what I get. I don't know. All very unhealthy and mean, but this is what we do. And none of it worked until we found what works.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to get to that. So I had this rock bottom moment, and it took place, sometime after I had my third daughter, and we took a family trip to the West Edmonton water park. And I'll never forget it. It was supposed to be this carefree outing. We're going to be building some core memories with our family. But after a short period of time at the swimming pool, something felt off. I was just filled with so much anger. It just consumed me. And I felt like it was directed towards my husband, but I couldn't figure out what it was. He didn't do anything wrong.
Okay.
And this is actually the time when you and I were working together. So I was already starting to like figure out, okay, what is causing this emotion in me?
Right.
I know that I'm angry. What is it that, but I couldn't pinpoint it. So I told my husband that I wasn't feeling well, masking my emotion.
Well, not really a lie, because you weren't feeling great.
That's true. Lie. So I told him I'm going upstairs to take a rest, but I had this fully intentioned plan to go eat this caramel popcorn that I'd bought earlier in the day. I was like, I just need to go buffer. I need to eat this food to feel better.
Yes, I need to eat my emotions.
Totally. So as I undressed, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror, and a wave of emotions rushed over me and tears were streaming down my face. And I realized the root of my anger. I wasn't mad at him. I was mad at me. It became clear to me that I had been trapped in this cycle of dieting and restriction and constant failure. I was deeply ashamed of my body and weight. And most of all, I was deeply ashamed at my inability to follow through on myself. So for months leading up to this point, I'd been attempting to eliminate sugar and flour. I think you remember this. And I was just failing. I was allowing myself one cheat day a week. And that cheat day would turn into like 2 or 3 days. And then I would tell myself I'm starting over. And I was just so tired. I was like, I just want to like not be like this anymore. I just want to stop thinking about food. So as fate would have it, on the way home from that trip, I opened up my junk mail and I stumbled upon a teaching from another master certified life coach, Corinne, who is preaching that you can actually lose your weight and it will be sustainable. Choose to eat whatever you want if you don't restrict yourself from food. And I was like, what? Like this is enticing, but also I don't really believe it, because how can you lose weight, putting a donut on your plan? How can you lose weight drinking lattes? But she said, you have to build trust in yourself. You have to first be able to follow through on the food that you put down for the day that you want to eat. And then your brain will start to be willing to make some level ups. Your brain will start to catch on, and you'll be able to start to lose weight because you'll be eating a lot less than you would if, you're good for 3 days and then you binge on the weekend, or, you give up altogether. So this brought an immediate glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
And I tried it and I lost my weight. And it wasn't like immediate, and it was a little bit slower than like some of the diets that I'd gone on in the past.
Yeah.
But it was doable, it was sustainable, and it really hit me that this is when I become a life coach, this is what I need to coach on, because every woman needs to know the lasting solution. So
let's spend some time here, because there are people listening that are saying, wait a minute, back this up. What? You can lose weight eating whatever you want? Because I know there was a time in my life where I would say, if I could eat whatever I want, it would be a lot of fast food. It would be wine. It would be deep fried everything. How there's no way that is going to help me to lose weight.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's 2 things that I did to lose my weight, and they're included in my 2-step process of what I teach women. So I'll tell you. So the first one is making a plan in the morning. So you write down every single thing that you think that you'll eat for the day. So you put your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, and if you eat snacks, you're going to put those snacks down. The second part of what I did to lose my weight, which I think is normal eating, and I'll explain that in a second, is you only eat when you are physically hungry. So you don't put the food that you wrote down on your plan in your mouth until you are physically hungry. You find out what those physical hunger cues are, and that's when you eat. And then the second part of that is you stop at satisfied. Now, the way that I define satisfied is satiated. So it's not like satisfied, like, oh, I ate the whole donut and I'm satisfied. It's like, no, physical satiation. So it's actually, that's how you're that's how you lose weight, is you eat less. I mean, all the diets are saying it a certain way, like this has this much calories. And if you measure this much, it's all eating less. And so following Hunger Satisfied is really kind of where that weight loss happened. So yes, I was putting croissants on my plan. I was putting donuts on my plan, but I had to stop. I had to learn how to stop eating halfway through the donut when I realized that I was satiated, and I had to learn safety around not eating. That really is how I lost my weight for good.
And there's something so freeing when you can make that mental shift into stopping when satiated. And I don't always get this one right. I fully admit this. There's something really satisfying about knowing that I'm not deprived. Like I could have this again tomorrow. I could have this later. Like this is still on my plan. I could, I can make a choice to have it at any time in my plan. So I don't have to feel deprived. It doesn't feel like it's now or never. So I better eat it all,
Absolutely. And at the beginning, you kind of like go through those growing pains of like, but I can't believe I'm not going to eat it all. And it's not going to be as good tomorrow. And your brain will toss up all these thoughts to get you to eat it all. But reminding yourself, and the one sentence that I encourage my clients to use is just what you said, Jen, which is, if I get hungry later, I can eat this again, or I can plan for this again tomorrow. And just that thought alone brings that safety into not eating it all in the moment.
So figuring it out for yourself was a lot. It sounds to me like most people spend so much time and energy focusing around diets and the rules and what they can eat. And they have to do this for 21 days or whatever it is. But what I'm hearing you say, and I would agree with this, is it's really all about our thoughts about the food. It's really all about our thoughts about eating. And you spent a lot of time dealing with those. And then it naturally kind of played out in how you ate.
Absolutely.
So your story, you figured out, you did all the things wrong. You learned everything the hard way. And then you figured out what works. And now you help other people in this journey. What's it like coaching?
You know what? I thought I was going to be, talking to women that had all these different types of struggles that were different from mine. And, there are some women who I coach who do have like different challenges, but we all have the same thoughts. They're all very repetitive, and our brains are all like designed the same way, which is something I want to talk about in a little bit, that I think that holds women back from losing weight. But it's so interesting to see why we all feel like we are afraid to not eat enough, why we all, want to give up the second that we, eat off plan. Like all of those thoughts are just generated from our experiences in the past. And I like to call it past diet trauma, because from every diet that we've done in the past, we, went against our hunger and satiation cues. There was times where we deprived ourselves when our bodies were telling us to eat. And to our brain, our primitive brain, that's like a traumatic experience. Your brain is wired for survival. So when you're not feeding it, when you are extremely hungry, your brain is going to tell you like, don't ever get hungry again.
Yeah, this is the worst. Don't do this.
Don't ever do this. Right. But I think, one of the common things that I see are very common thoughts that we have about losing weight. Like, it's going to be so hard. It's always going to be a struggle. I don't have any control around this food or that food.
Yeah.
And nothing is super new.
Isn't that funny? Hey, we think we're all a mess on our own. We're just failing over here on our island. And yet we're kind of all the same in many ways.
Absolutely.
So what do you think is a common thing that holds us back?
Yeah. So I wrote down 3 things that hold us back. And we did kind of just talk about one of them. The first one I wrote down are diets. Diets hold us back. And that's because, like I said, diets are something that we go on for a while and then we go off of. We go on it, we lose the weight, and then we go off of it and we gain the weight back.
Right.
The truth is that we probably didn't like the diet. There was something that didn't align with that diet, with who we are and who we imagine ourselves to be in the future. So one of the things that I think that we do is we tend to glorify some of the diets that we've done in the past, because we remember, the times where we were feeling good or we were fitting in that pair of jeans, but we tend to forget how we actually didn't with that diet. We didn't actually think that we could do that diet long term. And that's the reason why we went off of it. So I actually think that doing diets will keep you from achieving sustainable weight loss. So my first tip is to just stop dieting altogether and truly find something that you think that you could do long term. And I believe that I have the sustainable solution long term. But the other thing, the reason why dieting is such a problem is that we think that when we achieve our goal weight future, that we're suddenly going to have this better life. And that's why diets who offer such a short-term solution, you know, you're going to lose your weight in 3 months or 6 months. And it's like, why do we tend to go for those diets? It's because we think it's going to be better there than it is here. And sad and hard truth that we need to understand and realize that is it's not going to be better there.
It's really not, because you're bringing yourself there and all of those thoughts, right? And if you think, oh, you know, I'm a failure right now, but if I could just lose 20 pounds, then I'll feel confident. Well, you get there, you lose the 20 pounds, and then your brain says, sorry, you know what? There's still more weight to lose, or you're never going to keep this up. So why don't enjoy this? It's not going to last. Like our brains, we can just be so mean. So we have to work on that now.
And I also think that life is experienced through our emotions, and we're going to be given positive emotions. We're going to experience positive emotions, and we're also going to experience negative emotions. And that's not going away when you get to your goal weight. So the fantasy that this diet's going to get you to this happy land, it's just fallacy, right? That's what heaven's reserved for. That's when everything bad goes away and we're happy all the time.
Everything will be great when I fit this size, or, you know, I lose this weight, or I can run this amount of kilometers. Like, no, I've heard it said, and it's so cheesy, but yet it's so true. They say you have to love yourself thin. And I know I don't even like repeating it because I feel so cheesy, but it is true. You have to love yourself now. And that old school way of bullying ourselves and punishing ourselves, that's not motivating, and that's not sustaining any kind of healthy lifestyle. So I love what you're saying, Jaycee. And what I like to do too is let's create a healthy lifestyle that we can live with and feel good about now.
Amen, sister. Well said.
So diets hold us back.
Diets hold us back. No more dieting.
Stop the dieting.
No more dieting. Yes. Heal your relationship with food and all foods, which is really the anti-diet solution and part of the solution that I'm offering. And then learn how to trust yourself to follow through on how you want to eat. So the second thing that holds us back is the belief that I will always struggle, or this belief I'm broken. So this is so fascinating. I had this belief forever. And one of the things that really kicked this belief to the curb was understanding how our brain works. So I'm going to tell the women listening the two parts of our brain that really can connect this belief that you're not broken human to your experience. So the reason why most women feel like they struggle is because, you know, they go and eat the candy in the cupboard, or they eat all of their meals, or they feel like they can't go through an entire day without eating, you know, a treat and a latte in the afternoon. But what I want to tell you is that there's two parts of your brain that are in charge of your decision making. You have your primitive brain, which I like to call our toddler brain. It's the lower part of our brain. And then we have the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that sits on top of the primitive brain. And I call that the supervisor brain. So when you are having, let's say you're a mom and little Tommy, you know, scratches or punches his little sister, and you're feeling frustrated. The other one drew on the couch earlier that morning, and you have a busy afternoon of driving to his sport. You're feeling frustrated. You're feeling maybe overwhelmed. You're feeling maybe inadequate. Those are all emotions. You're feeling negative emotions. Now, one of the things that our primitive brain does is it will toss up thoughts to get you to go eat food so that you can feel a positive emotion.
Because it wants you to feel better.
It wants you to feel better.
Yeah.
So that primitive brain has three main functions: to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and to be as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
So it makes complete sense as to why your brain's telling you to go into the cupboard and get the snack, or, hey, maybe you should make a quick run to Starbucks to get the latte. It's because your
Yes.
brain's like, oh my gosh, she's feeling negative. Quick, let's go
Yeah.
get a snack.
Right.
And so what happens is you get dopamine when you eat sugar or flour, any sort of like concentrated foods. There's a reason why you're not snacking on carrots when you're frustrated.
Right.
Right?
My
Your
brain has
brain's
never said, quick, get a carrot. You'll feel better. My brain has never, ever said that.
Exactly. So, and I mean, there's a reason for that, right? We get dopamine and we get copious amounts of dopamine whenever we eat something that has sugar or flour in it. So it tells your brain, okay, everything's all good. You know, we're feeling okay now. We can go throughout the day now that we eat this food in us. Of course, it doesn't solve for the emotion. You still might be feeling frustrated, but it gives you that temporary relief. So I want to remind you that you're not broken. Okay. You are not going to struggle for the rest of your life. This is just a primitive functioning that you're seeking food when you're feeling a negative emotion. This is something I never knew. So one thing I would offer to you when you notice that you're going to food for comfort is to just ask yourself, what is it that I'm feeling right now? So this is going to tie into my third thing that I wanted to share, which is what is actually holding you back from losing your weight for good is feeling your emotions.
Isn't that it, hey?
Master certified coach Brooke Castillo. This is mine and Jen's girl crush in the life coaching world.
Fangirl, Brooke.
So she says, you don't have an overeating problem. You have an underfeeling problem.
Ooh, underfeeling? I think I feel quite a lot. Underfeeling.
Yeah. And so what that means is you just don't have the skill of feeling negative emotions. Doesn't mean that you just don't feel emotions. It means that you don't have the skill of feeling your emotions.
Yes.
And most people don't. Most people buffer with their emotions. And some of the other ways that we buffer other than food, again, this is to get dopamine for us to feel better, is we will over Netflix. We will scroll on our phones. Some people will watch porn. Some people
Online
will overspend.
shopping.
Yeah, shopping, right?
Yes.
So we tend to buffer from our emotions instead of feeling our emotions.
That's so good. I agree. Like as a coach, isn't that the thing is we just got to help. So I'm thinking of parents that I work with too, who like also want to be healthier. Lots of them want to lose weight, or they want to deal with stress better. They want to stop yelling. They feel like they yell a lot at their kids. They want to work on anger. But isn't that like at the core of it all is how can we be okay being in an uncomfortable emotion and not resort to any kinds of these either distractions or soothing or whatever it is we're going to do? Just be okay feeling the feeling.
And I think that there's certain emotions that we have low tolerance to feel. And I actually had this experience yesterday. My daughter was going through something with her friends. She was at a play date and one of them locked her in the room and they said, you can't come in. So she was feeling left out.
Yep.
So of course I'm trying to be her mom and try to make her feel better and try to get her to talk about her feelings, but she did not want to have anything to do with it. She kept on pushing me out. Like, I don't want to talk about it. So I was feeling this emotion of helplessness. And I do not like this emotion. This is a comfortable emotion for me to sit with.
Yes. And I would say it probably is similar to the feeling of not being in control. Like, I don't know what to do. I can't manage this situation.
Yes.
That's a hard one to sit with.
Yeah. I wish I had you there. I was like, what would Jen say? But I noticed that once we got home, I immediately had all these urges. Like, I should just grab a snack. Like, I should just grab these little popcorners and head to my room and I need 10 minutes to zone out. And then I was like, no, I'm feeling helpless right now. That's what this is. This is me feeling a really uncomfortable emotion that I want to buffer from, but I'm not going to because I know that it's not actually going to solve the problem.
So you could feel it. You could feel it. Your brain was saying, I'll make you feel better, Jaycee. Here, just get this snack. Go online. Just, just totally zone out for a little while. Just scroll Instagram. Don't think about it.
So what I want to offer to everyone listening and what I've learned throughout my life coaching and working with Jen is that emotions are harmless. I think we get scared to feel or open up to an emotion. And I think even being raised in homes, some of us were taught like we shouldn't be feeling bad and we shouldn't be feeling negative and we should be happy. And I mean, in my home, we weren't allowed to be sad. Like my parents did everything that they could in the moment to make us feel better immediately.
Yes. And that was so common. So common. Lots of parents, lots of us were raised in the, just go to your room until you feel better. Come out when you're happy. Or, oh, you're sad. Well, here, have a cookie. Or just go watch a show. Or here's my phone. Here's the tablet for a little while. Yeah, we got to fight against that because it's in us for ourselves. And if we can't sit with our own uncomfortable emotions, we won't be able to sit with our kids in theirs.
Yes, 100%. So I like to describe an emotion as vibration experienced somewhere in our body. And I don't want that to sound super woo-woo with that verbiage, but this is what I mean. Anger, for example, can be felt in our body in different places, right? Yes. Anger can make us feel like maybe for some of us, we have like a lump in our throat and maybe our palms start to get a little sweaty and our heartbeat races. That's what I mean when I say vibrations. But like you said, the sad thing is that nobody ever teaches us how to feel these feelings. So I want to teach our listeners just really quick how they can practice learning how to feel their feelings instead of buffering.
Let's do it.
So I've got 5 quick steps. Okay. When you notice that urge to go eat something or you're tempted to eat the entire plate of food, I want you to just ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Okay. So then that emotion, whatever emotion just comes to your mind, you don't have to, argue with it. Just say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. So for me, let's just use helpless. I'm feeling helpless. I want you to then say, it's safe for me to feel this emotion. Okay. Just remind yourself that it's safe. Then I want you to allow the emotion to be there. And then something that I like to do is to just reaffirm, I am feeling helplessness right now. This is helplessness right now.
This is looking it in the eye and just calling it what it is. Hey.
And then the next thing that I want you to do is to describe that emotion to yourself. So like I said, anger was felt in my throat. Is it going fast? Some of the questions you can ask are like, is it going fast? Is it going slow? Is it hard? Is it soft? Where is it now? Just figuring out where that emotion is in your body. And then when you felt that emotion all the way through, and this can last anywhere from, 1 minute to 5 minutes to 10 minutes, maybe if you have the time, but you're going to notice emotion will actually dissipate. It'll feel less intense inside of you. And the most important thing that I want you to do afterwards, when you're ready to just sort of move on, is to take a deep breath and acknowledge to yourself that you just felt that emotion. I want you to give your brain evidence that this emotion is harmless, that you just felt an emotion. Because if you skip this step, your brain is going to still toss up, those urges like we should go eat food. And then you can just remind, wait, this is helplessness. I can feel it in my body. It's at my throat right now. I think I just need to go sit with this emotion. And then lastly, I want you to figure out what you think the thought that was creating that emotion for you. Because our thoughts create our emotions. Our thoughts create our feelings. So if thought is like a sentence that you can associate with this, creating this emotion for you.
Yes.
So my thought with my daughter was, I can't help her right now. And that made me feel helpless.
I feel helpless. I don't know how to control this. Yeah, that's where it came from.
Lastly, and this is kind of an optional step, you can consider whether or not you want to keep thinking that thought. Because some thoughts are natural and they're part of our human experience. Like my daughter, like I can't help her right now. That feels very true. And it's honest for my experience in that very moment.
Yes.
But there are thoughts that are super limiting and self-defeating. And I get this a lot with my clients. So they'll come in and they have thoughts like, I'll never lose weight. Right? This is going to be so hard.
Yeah. It's never going to get better.
Yeah. I have no self-control.
I always fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll never last in the end.
It'll never last. That is a common one.
Nothing works. I've tried everything. Nothing works. Yeah.
So those thoughts are really worth examining and pulling apart. And the best way to pull those thoughts apart, of course, getting a life coach and writing them down even, and just, would I want to think this on purpose? If I didn't have this thought, if I didn't have this belief, would I choose this thought?
Right.
And that's a good indicator to decide whether or not that thought needs to be replaced with something else that is believable and true.
You know, I've read a lot of books. I've done a lot of self-work in this area, but I will say nothing beats having a coach, because there are things that we think that we don't even question. They're just so normal to us. And I'm thinking of a time, even with Jaycee, I was talking about something in my business, and in my mind, it was just very matter of fact, like, well, I can't do this. I don't even remember what it was, but in my head, I didn't even think about it, because in my mind, it was just a non-issue. And it was Jaycee that was like, whoa, wait a minute, let's go back there. Like, is that true? Is that absolutely true? And it was interesting, because I stopped in the moment and thought, no, it's not. And I've never stopped and thought about it. So this happens so many times with a coach, with another person who's trained to wait a minute, we got to go back here. Let's stay here for a second. I got to push back on this. Is this really what you want to think? And we all have things we don't even realize. So personally, I'm grateful to Jaycee for how she's helped me see new things in my own life, in my own health, in my own weight loss journey, and in my business. So I'm so grateful.
Thank you. And on that note, I have to share this because it just ties in perfectly. So I actually hired you, Jen, 3.5 years ago to help me with my weight loss. I wanted you to become my accountability coach. I told you guys earlier that I was trying to cut out sugar and flour at this point in my journey. And so I basically handed Jen this big giant binder, and I was like, well, these are all the foods that I can have, and these are the foods that I can. This is the program. And basically I need you to just keep me accountable to doing this. So I'd basically given her my solution to my problem.
Her set of rules.
My set of rules. But Jen, in our coaching sessions, was treating the cause of my overeating. And the cause of my overeating was my terrible beliefs that I had about myself. So I remember one of the days I was trying to lose weight. And I was also doing some worksheets from the life coach school. I wasn't a coach yet, but I had written out these top 5 outcomes that I wanted to achieve, before my life ends. When I'm 95 on my deathbed. These would be the top 5 things that I would hope to have achieved in my life. And then the next part of the exercise was to write out my top 10 negative beliefs that I have about myself. So I'm pretty sure the second session that I had with Jen, we literally looked at this sheet, and I had to rate these negative beliefs on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being like, I believe it to be fact, and 1 being like, I don't believe it at all. And every single one of these beliefs about myself, about my ability to lose weight, about with my husband, about if I'm a good mom, they were all 10s. I believed that I was a bad mom. I had so much mom guilt. I believe that I would never really be worthy of being with my husband. I believe that I would never lose my weight for good. I had all of these beliefs, and one by one, Jen just tackled them. And I had this massive transformation. What was supposed to be, I think I asked my husband, can I please just work with Jen for 3 months? It ended up being 2 years that I was working with Jen, and she transformed my life because she took these beliefs that I had and just pulled them apart. And I was able to start believing new things about myself. I still have that sheet, and I kind of assess it every probably 8 to 10 months. And I look at it, and the numbers they started to go down. And I probably have one of those beliefs that I still kind of believe is true, but all other 9 negative limiting beliefs are no longer beliefs that I have. So that's all thanks to you, Jen.
The freedom. No, you did the work, Jaycee. You had to look it in the eye, right? You had to do the work and be willing. I just got to walk you home. And that's my privilege. That's what I love about coaching, is that I get to help people and just kind of be beside them as they do really hard things. So you did the work. I'm so proud of you. I'm so pumped. And Jaycee is an amazing coach. She has walked the walk on every level. she can help you lose your weight for good. How can people find more information? They're going to want to sign up with you. They're going to want to learn more. Where can they go?
The website, www.loseyourweightforgood.com. On that website, access to a free training where I teach my 2 sustainable steps of losing your weight for good. And they can also find me on Instagram at Lose Your Weight for Good and on Facebook under my name, Jaycee Tara.
Wonderful. Okay. Last thing, just for fun, because we're humans, we're not perfect. We're a whole lot more free than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but we're not perfect. What is the one area that you're still like, I still got to coach myself through this. I'm still working on it.
Oh, you're going to think this is funny. It's actually this right now, talking to you on a podcast. I used to have this belief and working on this belief that I'm not articulate, that I'm not a good speaker. I don't sound good. I don't know what to say. Words don't come easily to me. That was like a 10 out of 10. Now I'm about, I don't know, a 5 out of 10. So that's still the one I'm working on.
And yet you're showing up and you're doing it anyway.
Yes.
I love it.
To you for me, but I'm so happy to be here. It's been really good, actually.
Oh, this has been fun. For me, it is still emotional eating. I've done a lot of work in a lot of areas, but I think when my life levels up and I do a new, really hard, scary thing, some of those old insecurities come back. So I feel like I can do the work in this area, and then I step into something newer or harder or scarier, and then my brain is right there being like, oh, okay, well, now you should eat a pizza pop. Well, now, you should have a glass of wine to feel better. So I'm still working on that. And Jaycee's actually helping me through it right now. So it's perfect.
I just want to offer that I don't think that we're ever going to get rid of our primitive brain's thoughts and those urges that come up.
Yeah.
Because we have the primitive brain, it's not going away. So we're always going to have that part of us that seeks emotional pleasure.
Yes.
Through food.
Yes. And avoids pain, right? And if something is scary, my brain wants to make me feel better.
Yep.
I'm not going to quit doing scary things. So I'm just going to have to be okay being uncomfortable.
Exactly. It's like kind of like the reason why I'm scared to come on a podcast, because that's I think it's a primitive programming where you're outside of the group. You're putting yourself out there, right? People might judge you. Some people might hate me. People might write in and reject me, right? My brain all of our brains want to be accepted and liked, and to not be put in the line of fire. So it's all normal.
Well, I'm grateful you're putting yourself out there, because I think this will help a lot of people. So it's worth it.
Yeah, that's my goal.
Well, thank you so much, Jaycee. We're going to get this podcast out. I think we're going to create a little bit of a cheat sheet with your tips, and we're going to have that available as a download. So wherever you're listening to this podcast, make sure you click on the show notes and you can get this downloadable cheat sheet with Jaycee's tips, so that you can kind of work through it like a worksheet, and then make sure you reach out to Jaycee, let her know how awesome and articulate she is. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Families Matter Most podcast with Jen Dean, part of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. If you are interested in contacting Jen for one-on-one parent coaching, for speaking engagements, or just to get a little more information, please visit our website, familiesmattermost.com.